Welcome to the CSA Chef Demo. This is the very first one of our series. We're calling it the Make a Date with Your CSA. So thanks so much for tuning in today to join us. My name is Katie Harvey. I'm with the Organic Association of Kentucky. We've got a great lineup of topics to talk about. So I'm going to kick us off with a little bit of an introduction. And then we're going to kind of go right into the getting ready for the CSA season and building all of those foundational skills. So we'll talk about getting into shape and stocking your pantry, go over some speed dating and produce storage, and then kind of spend a lot of time on the meet and greet and talking about cooking and prepping techniques for your CSA share. We'll have time at the end for questions, so feel free to drop in questions along the way. And right now, to get us started, we would love for you to kind of drop into the chat a vegetable that you would like more cooking or prep ideas for. What could you get a few more thoughts on, or what would you like to learn more about? So drop that into the chat for us. We'd love to know. And just want to let you know who's on the call with me today. So I'm our CSA program coordinator, and I'm joined by Natalie Ryder, the assistant director of the Organic Association Kentucky. She is helping us with tech support today and answering all your questions in the chat. So feel free, if you need anything, you can message her. And then Chef Tanya Whitehouse, she is joining us, zooming in from the Food Connection Kitchen in Lexington, Kentucky. So she's going to be leading us through the demo today. She is the program manager for the Food Connection as well as a chef. So she'll let you know all about the Food Connection as well. And then for anyone tuning in on the call today that's not familiar with the Organic Association of Kentucky, just wanted to give you a quick overview of what we do. Our whole mission is focused on promoting and advancing organic and regenerative agriculture across Kentucky. So we provide a lot of technical resources to farmers to learn more about growing organically, as well as providing some technical assistance. And then we also have a lot of resources like the Chef Demo to help connect consumers to more local organic farms in their area, as well as know what to do with all of that great seasonal food that you might be getting from farmers. So definitely check out our Oak Find a Farm directory that's on our website. If you're looking for farms in your area, that's an easy way to find one. And we'll offer a lot of resources and tips after this event as well in a follow-up email. So look out for that as well. And then this series is actually a part of the Kentucky Farm Share Coalition. So that's a program of Oak. It is a farmer-led wellness coalition that focuses on bringing CSA or community-supported agriculture into workplaces. So bringing those weekly vegetable boxes into workplaces across Kentucky and helping employers incentivize those boxes and incentivize healthy eating by offering discounts on the CSA shares. So it's an employer-sponsored discount that makes it a little easier to try out CSA for the first time or stick with the CSA to encourage healthy habits for the long term. So in 2023, our Kentucky Farm Share Coalition that the Chef Demo is a part of is we're working with 8 farms and we're connecting over 1,000 CSA members with those weekly boxes, which is fantastic. So let us know if you have any questions about this workplace CSA program, about Oak. You can drop those into the chat as well. And I'm going to pass it off to Chef Tanya. She's going to tell you a little bit about the Food Connection before we get started.
All right, welcome y'all. I am so happy to see so many people here today, and I think we've got a lot to talk about, but I do want to talk about our work here at the Food Connection. We are a college level local food systems unit here at the University of Kentucky. We do a lot of farm to fork work in trying to make sure that Kentucky farmers can get certified, first of all, when they grow all of their produce or raise their animals or produce their dairy or process all of their value added foods, that we can get them certified and in the pipeline for wholesale to institutions like the University of Kentucky. We also do a lot of education and outreach in regard to local foods. And so we work with organizations like Kentucky Farm Share and Oak to get the word out there and try to do all kinds of promotion of local foods and CSAs and farmers markets and stopping by your farm stands and any ways we can think of to get people to interact more with their farmers and their food. And we do lots of cooking classes, as Katie said, throughout the year and lots of demonstrations and just try to get people hands-on or at least some interactive ways to work with their food. So if you have any questions about that, you can put that in the chat and I'd be happy to answer. All right.
Awesome. Thanks so much, FT. You can go ahead and just dive in.
Okay, well, we were brainstorming about this and like, how do you like just approach having a CSA share? And sometimes it can be really overwhelming. So I said, it's almost like a relationship. Like you have the initial part where you might be speed dating, or you might be doing a meet and greet, and you're just unboxing and you're doing what you have to do at the moment. And then it moves on from there. And just like in a relationship, it might be bumpy in the beginning, even if you've done it before. And so we like this metaphor of the make a date with your CSA. So to start out on that, just very briefly, we have all of this in your materials in your handout for today. The first part of it is the get into shape. When we start dating again, we might exercise, we might get our hair done, update our wardrobe, whatever we need to do to put our best selves forward when we get out there in the dating community. And so how do you get ready for your CSA? Well, you want to take a look at your kitchen, your pantry, your equipment, get those cookbooks and your favorite recipes out, open up your file on your computer, however you want to do it, familiarize yourself with some things. Here is the CSA from A to Z. And I know that Kentucky Farm Share has given these books away in some contests. So this is a great resource. I just got this one from one of my favorite food writers, Tamar Adler. This is the Everlasting Meal Cookbook. How do you repurpose and reuse leftovers? We rely on Yotam Ottolenghi's cookbooks a lot. Plenty is one of his first ones, and I go back to it again and again. You can see all the pages that are marked here. Joy of Cooking is great. We call it the Bible. It's got the basics in it. And this is a great one by Joshua McFadden. It is 6 seasons rather than 4, but he shows you how to cook and use things up seasonally. He's got a great quick pickle recipe in here. So these are things that I rely on. You want to go through and take the temp on your refrigerator. Make sure it's holding at 40 or below. Make sure that you have cleaned it out and are prepared to receive these boxes with all of this wonderful produce in it. You want to check your pantry and make sure it's stocked so that you can incorporate vegetables. I've got a lot of stuff behind me. It's the kind of thing I like to stock my pantry with. Things like roasted red peppers, cans of beans and tomatoes, pastas, dried legumes, seeds, nuts. And I also want to make sure I have a little bit of flour, some cornmeal, things to dredge things in, and that my fridge and freezer are stocked with my dairy, my eggs, my proteins, maybe some stock in the freezer, some frozen fruit or frozen veg, and some other things. And that's all outlined in your handout as well. So I don't want to go over that too much. If you like to preserve, you want to make sure you have all of that equipment and all of the things that you need to add. I've gotten ready to make jellies and have found out I don't have enough pectin, or my pectin's out of date. So you want to make sure you have all of that ready to go. And we'll talk about this mostly at the end, but just embrace the journey as we go on this. It's like if you were dating, you would embrace the journey, and you don't have to have any particular expectation in mind. But when we get to breaking down our box, when you get the first bag or the basket or box, when you go to your pickup or it gets delivered, I call that the speed dating. So when you get that home, even if you're tired, even if it's been a long day, you want to do a few things. So it's just about 5 minutes you're getting the first initial contact with your CSA share. So you want to do things like, I've got some beautiful green garlic here, and it's got a rubber band on it. I want to take those rubber bands off. Any twist ties you want to take off. That is great for the farmer to put your share together and make sure everyone's getting the same portion. But what it does is it compresses the cells in these vegetables, and we want to get that off. You want to remove any of that also from your herbs. Now, I've got this. Here's the twist tie. I want to take that off. I've got this here. What we tend to do here in the kitchen is stick these down in a cup of cool water just for the water to cover the stems. I can show you right here. We have some gorgeous, well, that's spinach, but that'll work as well. We have some cilantro here in a can, and we label it, of course. And I'm going to add this parsley in as its neighbor, just to keep that nice and fresh during our demo. So those are some things you can do as far as unpackaging. The other thing you really want to do is if you get, and you will probably with a CSA, if you get root vegetables with the greens still attached, this could apply to your turnips, radishes, carrots, all kinds of similar veg. You want to remove those greens for two purposes. The greens will deteriorate at a different rate from the actual bulb or the root of the plant. So you're going to have to store them separately so that they stay as fresh as possible. Secondly, the greens are notorious for sucking all of the water out of your root, and it'll make it wither and get really soft, and it won't be as good for cooking. So you just want to take, and you can do it all in a bunch if you're really tired and you just want to, if they're still bunched before you take the rubber band off, just to slice off the greens. Sometimes I'll leave a little bit on the top. It makes it look really rustic. If I'm roasting those little turnips whole, I would leave a little bit of the root of the green, stem on top. So you could do it all at once like I did with those radishes, but get those greens off there. Now don't throw away or compost your greens, because you can certainly use these. We're going to throw these in. If we've got time, we'll do a salad at the end. But I think you all are pretty familiar with that technique, so we may not have time for that, but I'm going to put these over here with my salad greens because I'll toss those in if we get to that. But they're super tasty. They do have a similar flavor to your root. Just take a bite if you want a piece of that. Now, for anything else, if you have particular questions about a particular vegetable, please put that in the chat, and Natalie or Katie will shout that out to me. But those are just some initial tips and tricks as far as just the first unboxing. The only other thing I would say is if you have lettuce like this and you're bringing it in from the heat, you can see mine probably has some condensation going on. We really need, when we're storing veg, to control moisture and temperature. So we want to get this open. I want it to express all of that heat and get that out. Also, for leafy lettuces that are not on the head like this, you really want it to aspirate. You want it to breathe. So we want to open up this bag and not put all the moisture and keep it in there. For roots, you do want to put all the moisture in and keep it in there. So you would put these in a bag or a container that will seal and put them down in your crisper drawer if you have one. You could use reusable, you could use just freezer bags, whatever you prefer to use. It's up to you, and it's up to what kind of room you have in your fridge. You also want to, for things that require a lot of moisture, if you can't seal them up, you want to make sure to put some moisture in there. So a damp towel or a damp paper towel will put that moisture in there. I don't want to go over every individual food that's on your grid. This is what's going to be in a typical share about now. I did leave the asparagus off of there. That was my mistake. So help me remember to add that in. We are going to pickle some asparagus in just a moment. So I want to make sure to pull that in. But if you have specific questions about what is on this grid, about what qualities you're looking for when you get that veg, how to store it, how long you can store it, and that is, it just kind of depends on the moisture that's in there, how it was treated before you got it, how you treat it, and what your fridge conditions are like. And then the uses, we'll talk about a lot of those at the end, so I'm going to save that. So let's move on to the meet and greet. And so for dating, this is the point where you actually agree to meet up with someone and spend a little time getting to know them. So it's the same with our CSA. We want to make sure that we spend a little time doing some basic prep. Now, this is not the long-term relationship. This is not full-blown meals and menu planning and all of that. This is just a few bulk prep kind of things that you can do if you have a few minutes, or if you want to have set a day where you're saying, this is the day I'm going to prep all my CSA stuff. Sunday night, Monday night usually works really well for that. And that way you have it through the week and you're going to pick up again on a Thursday or whatever day you're picking up on. A lot of our farms do have pickups on Thursdays, so that's why I mentioned that. So what I'm going to show you are just some things that you can do to get some bulk concentrated. And the first thing I want to show you, I'm going to lift up the camera that's on the cutting board right now so that you can see my little setup over here. I've got some boiling water, and we're going to blanch and shock greens. Right now in the spring, this is where you're going to get a ton of greens. Your fridge is going to turn green. It's going to glow. So this is one way to, one, reduce the amount of that, two, to help preserve it if you don't think you're going to eat it really soon. Also, it's a great preparatory trick. Restaurants use blanching and shocking as a par cooking tool a lot of the time. So you can season your greens that way, you can lock in the color, and then it doesn't take very long to saute them up for dishes later. So I've got some gorgeous arugula here, and I've got the water boiling. I have not salted my water. If I'm going to freeze, I typically don't salt. If I'm going to use it for a dish, I do. But let's pretend we're preserving these. So I'm just going to take a handful. You don't want to dump in so much that you bring the temperature of your water down. So in small batches, dump it in. For a leafy veg like that, it's not going to take very long at all. 30 seconds, perhaps. If you have something a little bit tougher, you might want to leave it for a minute. But really, we're just trying to wilt that down and break down those cells. They're going to give off their water, and that when you have less water in a vegetable, it's going to do less damage to it when it forms ice crystals later. So if you can go ahead and break down those cell walls, that will help you in the thawing process to see what your veg is going to be like when it comes out on the other end of freezing. So we're putting this now down into a bath of ice water. So just plain old ice water, and that's going to stop the cooking process and chill that down until I can touch it. I'm going to also show you this big collard leaf here. You either want to strip it off the stem. I have a specific purpose for this collard leaf, so I'm actually just going to split the stem out of it until it will bend very easily. This I'll probably leave in the blanching water for about a minute. Now that these arugula greens have blanched and cooled down, I'm going to take them out. You can squeeze them out. Now you can do this with chard, spinach. Arugula is wonderful in that it can be used raw or cooked. So this is a wonderful application for it. I'll show you in just a bit. You just pull it out of your ice bath, give it a squeeze, and then put it in a container if you're going to use it fairly soon, or start chopping it and breaking it down 4 bags to go into your freezer. So this is my collard leaf. This is my arugula. You can have spinach on hand, and you don't have to get those blocks at the grocery store. You can have greens ready to go into a smoothie for smoothie kits. They can be ready to go into a casserole of soup or whatever else that you want to use those for. So that's one way to do some quick preparation and preservation. I need to pull out my collard leaf, second one, and get that into the bath. Now I'm going to turn that hot bath off because we're going to do some other things here. I really need to watch my time. One other quick preservation method, if you think you're not going to use your veg, is to quick pickle. And this isn't the big fermenting process. This is where you take vinegar, a little water, salt, sugar, maybe some spices. We've added a little bit of peppercorn and fennel or coriander seed today. I've got these beautiful asparagus right here. Maybe I'm not going to shave them up or roast them up like I typically do. I don't have time, or I'm going on vacation. This might be a good application. I'm just going to take off the spear part. You can reserve the stalk for a stock or a soup later on, but I'm going to take those and just put them down in this canning jar. I want enough in there that it is kind of tightly packed, but not so tight I can't pour any of the pickling liquid in. I also have some sliced up carrots here. Again, enough in the jar so that it's packed in, and then I have some cucumbers. You can quick pickle just about anything. I'm going to get my pickling liquid, walking off camera just a minute. Oh, I failed to mention this does have a little bit of bay leaf and a couple of cloves of garlic in it as well. And we're just going to, it's hot, boiling hot. We're just going to, whoo, and I just inhaled it. Be careful not to do that. Pour it over that raw veg. You just wash it, trim it, and cut it to size and throw it in your jars. Now, what's wonderful about this is, one, the zippy flavor that you can add to just about any dish when you keep pickles around. And number 2 is it will extend the shelf life by 3 to 4 weeks. So I just put that on there, let it cool down. I don't put the lid on until it cools down so it doesn't vacuum pack it in there from the heat cooling off. And then you just stick it in your fridge. Maybe put a little label on top. You can do that method with just about any vegetable whatsoever, other than leafy greens. You can pickle anything with any structure. I also wanted to show you, if you, I think Katie and I were talking about this, about using up radishes when you get them. You get a bag of them to put in a salad or to have on a veggie tray, and then the rest of them go bad. So I wanted to show you, not only can you slice them up, I'm going to show you my favorite recipe with radishes first, or last, but we're going to just give these cut in half, maybe quarter if they're really big. There are all sorts of beautiful spring radishes right now. You might see breakfast or Easter egg radishes, which have all the different colors. Their spring radishes are a bit milder than your winter radishes, like watermelon or black radish or even daikon. But the icicles and the daikons are coming in right now as well. Those have some heat to them. One thing that you can do to mitigate the heat is to slice or cut them and put them in cold salted water for a period of time. That will, it'll mitigate a little bit of that heat, not a lot. You still have quite a bit of that nice zing when you bite into it. And funny fact is that radishes aren't hot until their cells break down. That's when those compounds are released that make that kind of horseradishy type heat. And we're just going to do one other method that really does make these milder, and that is to cook them. I know it's kind of strange to think about cooking a radish. We're used to eating them fresh, but I'm going to toss them in here. Just a tiny bit of olive oil. Give it a toss, toss. And then I've got a sheet pan. I've got way too much stuff here, folks. I've got a sheet pan. I'm going to put it right there. And give it just a little sprinkle of salt. And I'm going to do the same with these lovely little hikuri turnips. Now, going the other way, hikuri turnips you can eat raw. They're called salad turnips too, but they are wonderful just split like this. Again, tiny little turnips in the spring are going to be much milder than your big globe or purple turnips that you find in the fall. And they're really, if you're not a fan of turnips, if you're not a fan of that wang, then this might be the way to go. There are some wonderful recipes of using the turnips and their greens together that you can find online. And that's a wonderful way to eat root to stem. So I'm just having these, and like I said, I like leaving a little bit of the stem and the root on so they look nice and rustic. Again, a small drizzle of olive oil, a small sprinkle of salt. And we're going to turn this on there, and I'm roasting at 400 degrees, probably take about 10 minutes or so. So maybe not by the time we finish this, but hopefully I can show you part of that. So we've got just a few minutes left. I wanted to show you my favorite recipe with radishes, and you can do this with any root vegetable. This is inspired by the French, and this is how they eat theirs. If you can find those beautiful little breakfast radishes, that's a wonderful way to eat it. But I've got some Sunrise Bakery sourdough bread here, and I think you can see where I'm going. I have some wonderful Minerva Amish roll butter, and we've been letting it sit out so it's perfectly waxy. And we're going to spread that on. Just a bit. The French sometimes even just dip their radishes into butter. They even do without the bread. But this is a wonderful breakfast or brunch treat. If you do get radishes in your share and don't know how to finish them outside of a salad. And I think even your kids might like it this way, especially if you serve it up plain. So we've got our butter spread on there. I've got my sliced radishes here. And we're just going to tile. I have them in the water. Again, like I said, that will mitigate a lot of that heat. And we're just going to tile up some radishes in whatever artistic pattern. Have some fun, get creative, have fun with your CSA. That's one of the reasons you're doing it. And tile it up here. Cover the surface. I like a good radish to butter and bread ratio. I have a little bit of coarse sea salt, sprinkling that on top. Just a pinch for a little bit of crunch and savoriness. I have some sliced chive. Again, you might leave this off for the kids. if you're trying to get them to try the radishes. And I've also used a little bit of the radish greens, and that's going to be my garnish. All right, just slice those up. So that's one way to use up your radishes. And we've got another minute or two. I wanted to show you something, a progression with another of our root veg, and that is with carrots. We'll see a lot of carrots, a lot of different varieties of carrots. As I've said in the grid, the shape of carrots is often depending on the hardness of the soil that they grow in, which is fascinating. So we have just taken whole carrots here, roasted them off with some red and white onion, and I've just stacked them here. Like I'm just gonna put this out on a buffet or a dinner table. Then we took the carrot fronds off the top. Like I said, we took them off when we got it in the order from the farm, and we've made a pesto. And my goodness, it smells amazing. So just the carrot fronds, a little bit of, I think I put this in your recipes if you want to scroll down to that, a little bit of basil, nut or seed if you want, but you don't have to. Pesto just means pounded. So it's anything that's kind of zhuzhed up in your food processor, or if you want to get out that mortar and pestle and do it by hand, I salute you. A little bit of Parmesan, some olive oil, and then we love to add a little bit of lemon juice or lemon zest and a pinch of Aleppo pepper flakes. So I'm serving the carrots with their own carrot zest, and that's day one for those roasted carrots. Now, if you have those left over, what you can do on day two is chop up those carrots and those roasted onions, add a little bit of garlic, saute them up in a little bit more garlic oil with a Moroccan or North African blend of spices or whatever, but you could do Southwest. You could use Fiends Arab or some kind of herb blend that you love and saute it up with herbs. Add a little bit of fresh green herb on top. I've got cilantro here, and you have a lovely carrot salad. You can serve that warm or room temp. A nice side, it's nice by itself. Add it on top of a salad, and it's wonderful. Now, by day three, you might think, oh my gosh, I'm so tired of carrots. But take that Moroccan salad, put it into your food processor, zhuzh it up, serve it with croustades of some kind, pita wedges, crudité. It makes a phenomenal dip or spread. We can always look at dips as spreads. Or marinades or additions to salads. And a lot of times I'll make hummus and I'll use hummus as my salad dressing. And then I'm going to throw together, as a last gesture, I'm going to throw together real quick. We took some of our green onion and we grilled it. So a lot of people will go outside. They don't want to roast up. Who wants to turn the oven on when it's already 87 degrees outside? So we grilled this up, and I'm just going to chop up these green onions now that we've grilled them. They do this a lot in Spain. Actually, the word for green onions or scallions in Spain is a lot more similar to shallot. So they almost call the green onions their shallots, even though we're used to that being something a lot different. I'm going to cut up the whites and the greens and throw those in a bowl. These are absolutely delicious as they are. They are a great addition to frittatas and omelets and salads, and of course soups and stir fries, marinated vegetables. I love, you can tell, I'm a big fan of the allium family altogether. We have some roasted garlic here of our bulb garlic. I also have some green garlic, and if you're not familiar with green garlic, or have questions about that, please let me know. We're getting close to time. I want to leave some room for questions, but I'll show it to you. It looks a lot like a green onion. And in fact, sometimes we have to look very carefully in the kitchen. It's easier to tell by their greens. So some of them have a little bulb, some don't. They have a garlicky pungency. It's just young garlic. And so you can add some of that in. I love to layer allium flavors roasted with raw. So I'm going to just try, you use this interchangeably with raw garlic. And I'm just going to mince a little bit of that up and throw this in here. So I'm just sort of winging a dip or a marinade or a sauce, whatever you want to use this for. I'm going to add a little bit of olive oil. Actually, to take the lid off, I'm going to add quite a bit of olive oil here. That's going to form part of our sauce. And then I've got these wedges of lime left over from some infused water that we did. I'm just going to squeeze a little lime juice in there. for acid. You could add any kind of citrus, you could add any kind of vinegar. When you make a vinaigrette, it is fat and acid in a ratio of 1 to 2 or 1 to 3. And that's all you need to know. So I'm just going to do that. I'm going to stir it up. And we've got a lovely little relish or condiment, or if you wanted to add a little bit more of the liquids, you would have a sauce. So that's a couple of things to think about doing. Other step, things that I love to do, if you're going to use with your blanched greens, if you're going to use them a little bit further, I've got some of that blanched arugula here. I have chopped up some of the artichokes and I've added some sliced sun-dried tomatoes out of my pantry because I try to keep my pantry full so that I can incorporate the local veg. I'm going to lift up my camera once again to show you what I'm doing over here on the stove. I've got a saute pan and I'm going to turn that on. Let me get this out of the way. Get that on medium-high heat and add just a little bit of the olive oil to saute. And I've got a little salt and a little pepper. Actually, I've got a lot of salt and pepper. We'll just put a little pinch in. I'm going to drizzle some olive oil in there. And if I have a good hot pan, which I may not yet, if I have a good hot pan, then what I want to do is add my veg and saute that up a little bit. Now, one thing that I want to point out about these early spring CSA shares is you might see some things that have been overwintered, things that are left from fall and winter veg, things that store really well might be left over. Just going to give that a little saute. So one of the things you may see some cabbage, you may see some sweet potatoes, some fall and winter squashes, and you might go, why is this still going? Well, that's one way that we keep going year round with local seasonal food. So I have some beautiful little tiny fingerling sweet potatoes. These things are so sweet. If you have never had a farm grown sweet potato, you're in for a world of difference. They have so much more flavor and so much more sweetness than anything you can find in a grocery store. And I think, Katie, we have done a sweet potato bar demo in the past, if I'm not mistaken, and where I showed you, like, here's a bunch of stuff you could put out sweet potatoes, you can bulk prep a lot of ingredients, and then each family member can choose what they want to go on their sweet potatoes. And it's a wonderful way to incorporate lots of veg, to get people to try more veg, and to also be very selective if you have folks who have particular diets that they need to follow for whatever reason. So I've got these sweet potatoes, they've been baked off. I've just split them and opened them up. So I'm going to take those greens now that they're good and hot. And those artichokes and sun-dried tomatoes. You could put in here anything, some of that asparagus that we didn't pickle. Later on in the month, or in the 1st of June, we'll have some beautiful sugar snap peas. But I'm going to take this and put it on top of my sweet potatoes as a topping. You could add a protein if you wanted. So if you keep those, you're keeping something in your freezer or fridge, or if you get a meat share along with your veggie share, you could add an animal protein. If you're keeping those legumes going in your pantry, either canned or dried, you could put those on. And I have just a wee bit of Parmesan to top these with. So this is a wonderful way to use up lots of different ingredients, both in your share and out of your pantry, if you are prepped up and ready to go for your CSA. I could even put that onion dip in here. We could do some pickled red onion on top. The combinations are really endless. If you want to go back and try to find that sweet potato demo, that'll give you a few more ideas as well. Let's check on our radishes and turnips. And the one thing I want to do on those is add a little seasoning on top of the salt that I'm going to do. All right, well, we're starting to get soft and tender and get a little translucent. So I'm going to add just a sprinkle of fennel. This is something that dietitian, chef, and farmer Vanessa Oliver showed me was just to roast these up and put just a touch of fennel on them, and it's really fabulous flavor. You can use whatever dried spice, seed, or herb that you want that you find really tasty and approachable if you want. So we're going to add that in. We're going to roast this off just a little bit longer. Another one of the ideas I had with your blanched and chopped greens, especially with a large leaf green, like your collards. We did include recipes, or not recipes, techniques for bean cookery and for grain cookery. And Joy of Cooking is great because it has a whole grid of grains. So it has the ratio of liquid to the grain and the cooking technique. There are about 3 basic ones that you use when you cook grains. So that's a great resource to have, or you can look it up online. A lot of the food blogs have grids of how to cook all different grains. And if you have those in your repertoire and can do it once a week, then you can eat different meals all week long. So I have some wonderful scarlet beans that we got from a local farm, and I've just cooked these down with a lot of onion, and the onion is falling apart, and some bay leaf. And I'm putting my greens there. I have some local polenta. I know some of you might get some coarse ground or some stone ground cornmeal in your shares. And you cook up a cup of that with a cup of, or with 4 cups of liquid. I have used veggie stock here. And I'm just going to put that polenta in there. Now I might use any of my other veggies. I'm going to use a little bit of this onion condiment relish that we've got here. I could put in some of that. That carrot dip is wonderful on a lot of different things. I love to put it in wraps or on sandwiches. So we could do some of that carrot dip. I could do a little bit of the pesto. Let's do that. A little bit of the pesto here for all sorts of flavors and textures. And then you use your collard green, and you can do this with really large chard or spinach leaves as well. You sort of pull it over like a burrito. And we're going to wrap this up. Of course, you could do lettuce wrap. That is something a lot of people are familiar with. But we could wrap this up and make like a little wrap sandwich or spring roll. You could add ingredients such as that. This is one of those nice recipes that is great throughout the cooking season. And Katie, you will attest to how much we love those sort of formulaic recipes that you could switch in different seasonal veg and ingredients as you go. So let me grab a plate for that.
Oh, I was just going to say, Chef T, yeah, right now your camera is angled at the stove instead of the cutting
There we
board.
go. Sorry about that. Let me do that one more time.
No, you're good.
We're good? Okay.
You're good. You're good.
And then, since we do have just another moment or two, I do want to talk salads. Now, when you, because you're going to get a lot of lettuce. You might get it in a head. This is a beautiful bib. What I love about the aquaponic lettuces, if you are getting any of those, sometimes you might see those at the farmer's market. Leave the root on, and like for me, I'm cooking for one person. This will last a lot longer if you leave it on the root. But if you use the tips and tricks in your grid as far as how to preserve everything well, you should be able to eat off a head of lettuce for 5 to 7 days, depending on the environment in your fridge. And then I have the other lettuces in the bag, and we've hopefully left those in our crisper drawer with this open, trying to make sure that we're letting a little air circulate so nothing starts to get slimy right away. That's what you're looking for with storing your veg, is whether it desiccates and dries out and looks really dry, or if it starts to look a little dark and starts to get a little slimy feel. You wanna make sure that doesn't happen. Sometimes that means changing out your paper towels so that they either stay dry or stay damp. That may mean drop it. If you see things wilting, you might want to drop them into some cool water to kind of freshen them up again. One thing with salads, though, that I try to show people a lot is just a very simple way to make a very simple dressing. So we've got My students are here with me today, and I'll just put on the prep list sometime. I'll just say, make a vinaigrette kit. And I think they can make it by heart by now. Yeah, they're nodding their heads. So basically, like I said, vinaigrette is fat and acid. We've got a ratio of 1:2. I like the 1:2 ratio. I think a 1:3 ratio is a little heavy, though that's what a lot of chefs and culinary guides will tell you. So we've got some Madhouse vinegar right here and some olive oil. I always love to add a little bit of vinegar. You could add alliums. A lot of times I'll use shallot, garlic, or green onion, or a little bit of red onion if I don't have a shallot. But really, any allium will be great. You could use fresh and dried herbs. You could add a little sweetener like honey or a little fruit juice. Vinaigrettes can go, again, the combinations are endless, but you can also keep them very simple. So I'm going to add the vinegar, the oil, and the mustard. Mustard I like adding because it is great for helping emulsify. When we say emulsify, that means we're taking the vinegar and the oil and we're pushing their molecules together. They don't like each other very much, and so they try to separate. The protein in the mustard, who knew mustard had protein, but it does, and it helps bind those molecules together. So I've got some salt and some pepper, a couple of pinches of salt, one little pinch of pepper. And you want to, this is something a kid can do if you make sure to put the lid on really well, is let them shake up your vinaigrette for your salad for the night during the spring CSA season. And that is a wonderful also marinade, a sauce for grilled or roasted veg, and it's great on fish as well. So super simple sauces that you could use across the board. I think we're getting really close now.
Yeah, I'll jump in here, Chef T. We are like just a few minutes to 1. We're at 12:58. And I mentioned that this recipe, the vinaigrette you're showing off, is in our handout, and we'll try to capture any other recipes we don't have in there to share out. But just wanted to circle back. We had one question that you kind of already answered, but just wanted to like follow up on any nuances there. Questions about storing the salad greens in the bag that you kind of mentioned, you kind of leave open. You know, someone was asking if you like ever close that back up. And just kind of maybe if you could touch on the nuances of like storing a head of lettuce, storing like a bag of salad greens, and then maybe storing like something bigger and leafier like Swiss chard or collards or like kale, like just to kind of like the nuances of the greens.
There's a lot of leaves, right?
Yeah.
But the nice thing is that once you have a handle on how to do one kind of food, anything in that category, so any sort of delicate leaf like a lettuce, and that's in picked baby form like this, you're going to treat it all the same. Pretty much any kind of head of lettuce, you're going to treat it the same. So this, again, what we want to control is the humidity and temp on this. We're in this, think about this too. We're in the spring season. There's a lot of moisture and cooler temperatures. So that's the things that grow well now, like those environments. So we want to recreate those when we're at home, but we just do have to be careful about not going too far one way or the other. So I do leave my lettuce bags open, especially if they've been hot, because that will increase the condensation that's in the bag. You do have to be careful when you're getting toward the end of your 5 to 7 days. These might dry out a little bit, so it may behoove you to drop these in a big bowl of cold water and just let it sit in your fridge for an hour or so, and that will spruce those right back up, and then you can put them back in your container again. You don't want them to get super wet, so sometimes if I do that, I'll put them on a paper towel to dry out just a bit. The heads of lettuce require a little bit more moisture, especially those that don't have the root system on them like this. So that's when I would dampen a paper towel, wrap it around this, and then keep it in its bag. I would still keep it in an open bag for the lettuce. I do like lettuces to breathe. With the roots, though, you do want to kind of containerize and put them together. With the leafy green herbs, very similar. That water on the bottom is really important, or the water on the stems. Same thing with any large leaves like this. Now, arugula, a smaller spinach, baby kale, again, is going to come in a bag. So you're going to use it the same way as you do the lettuces. But any large leafy, large kale, chard, large spinach that comes in a bunch, or this it's nice that it's in a bunch because then you can wrap a damp paper towel around this and you can put it in a bag or container that does feel that it's okay. The thing about this is you can't just do that and not look at it again for a week and think it's going to be fine. You do have to check these.
Yeah.
It's like any with a relationship, you have to check in, right? You
Yeah.
have to look at
Yeah.
it every couple of days and make sure that that environment that you've taken the time to do is still continuing. And that's going to keep things as fresh as possible. But you and I have had this conversation too, Katie. Sometimes you need to go ahead and eat some of these things. So
Yeah.
prioritize the delicate leafy lettuces, especially the babies. I would go ahead and eat. That would be if you're planning out your menu or if you're putting a list to prioritize on your fridge or something. Some people are that organized. I wish I could be. Then you want to eat your lettuces and delicate things first. So leafy lettuces, herbs, sprouts. We didn't talk about sprouts. I can bring that out if we have a moment. And then you can get to your other leaves. They will last.
Absolutely.
Longer.
And we might have to jump in really quick. I think people have to hop off,
Okay.
but just wanted to thank everybody for tuning in. We'll follow up with a lot of resources. We really appreciate you being here with us.